So by now you'll have heard me banging on about why we think bespoke builds and choosing a frame first and choosing all your components around that frame is the best way to buy a bike. And the reason for that was because when you buy stock bikes, they always come with components that you don't want, whether that's fit related, to do with your stem length or your bar width or your crank length, or whether it's just because it comes with components that you know you're going to want to upgrade at a later date. So when you do a bespoke build, you're obviously choosing your frame first around your bike fit, so you know the geometry that you need, and then you can choose every single component that you want on that bike. Whether it's fit related, like we said, with stem and bars and cranks or seat post or saddles, or whether it's performance related, where you can choose where you want to spend your money on upgrading certain parts and making sure that certain parts are of the spec that you want, like with tires and wheels and so forth. So we've been offering bespoke builds through our workshop at Crafted Cycles, and that's where I am right now. And now it's finally my turn to have a bike built bespoke for me. I'm going to talk about what I've chosen, why I've chosen it, and obviously we're going to go through a full spec and even weigh the bike, so stay tuned if you want to know what the full weight of the bike is that I'm creating. But first we need to get it built up. So I'm going to hand this over to Alex, our workshop manager at Crafted Cycles, and he's going to build this up for me, and then we'll check back in and go through the full spec of this Elves Vanyar Pro Disc.
Okay, good morning. So we are on another ride today, and I want to test out this bike's abilities on some steep stuff. It is advertised as a climbing bike after all, so I want to see what it's made of, up some 10% plus gradients. So another incredible day weather-wise here. It's already warm. It's only 7:30, but look at that. So I'm just heading to Benissa, and then from Benissa we're going to go to Pinos. So Benissa to Pinos is like one of the best stretch of cycling roads that I've ever ridden. It's this incredible, it's on the edge of a cliff face basically, so you get some insane views. Better than that. Some insane views across the valley, and yeah, it's hard to describe. Obviously the tarmac's incredible, but the views are even better. So we're going to head there first, and then out of Pinos we're going to do the Puerto de Benilla climb. Butchered the pronunciation, but that climb is about 3k and it averages somewhere between 10 and 12%. So it is a steep one, but it's only 3k, so more than manageable. And yeah, we'll test out this bike's abilities on some steep climbs. Now, if anyone tries to tell me that that isn't one of the best cycling roads in the world, then you're just wrong. It is incredible. So I've just made it to the foot of the steep section of the climb. So now we'll test out what this bike's like up some steep stuff. I'm hoping it's going to go well up this steep stuff, and hopefully as it gets steeper, the weight of the bike comes into its own a bit even more and just gets better and better. So fingers crossed, let's see. That friendly little kilometre marker then just told me it's maximum 17%. So definitely worthy of testing this bike. This is way more pitchy than I remember. So the average may well be 10-11%, but there's bits like this where it's basically flat. So the steep sections are more like 14, 16, 17%. Whew. Okay, so that was more brutal than I anticipated.
Yeah, the average gradient is it doesn't tell the full story. There are maybe 4 steep sections, and then in between each of those sections there's a bit of false flat, even a tiny descent in the middle of one of them, so that really affects the average gradient. So when you do get to the steep bits, it's a lot steeper than 10%, but stunning climb all the same. So the bike, how did it perform? So I'm not normally a climber that stands out the bike. I normally just stay seated for my climbs. I just feel more powerful and more comfortable there. But sometimes that does mean that on steeper stuff it's hard to stay on top of a gear because you're not standing and putting your body weight through the pedal stroke, so it requires a little bit more effort per pedal stroke. So I've got a 50-34 on the front and an 11-34 on the back. So 1-to-1 ratio is my easiest gear. And I just felt really on top of the gear all the way. It's hard to describe. When you get to the point where you feel like the gradient's about to get on top of you and you're going to have to either change your cadence, grind it out, or get out the saddle, which for me is a bit of a last resort, you never really get to that stage. You get to that stage where it's starting to feel hard, it's starting to feel like you might need to get out the saddle, and then that moment never comes. You sort of always stay on top of the gear, and I do feel like it's giving me something back when I am climbing. Now obviously the weight of the bike has a lot to do with that. It is light. I'll reveal how light it is at the end of the video, so stay tuned, as well as the full spec, so you can know how we got it to this weight as well. But yeah, the frame has a lot to do with it. I'm still a little bit amazed and shocked about this bike because the price is a lot lower than any other bike out there, and it performs I'm trying not to say it, but it performs almost like the best bike I've ever ridden. I've ridden a fair few bikes, but in terms of an all-rounder, this is just doing everything I want it to do. And next I'm going to test it out on some flats and some descents, so I can tell you what it feels like there. But for my type of riding, which I would say is very normal, very average, so lots of steady miles commuting, and then maybe 1 or 2 longer rides during the week, few hills, few flats. This is sort of the perfect bike for the all-rounder cyclist, I would say.
So I said I'd tell you a little bit about this bike on the flat. Obviously it rides really nice, as you'd expect. So there's not an awful lot to say about it, but what I will say is a little bit about the tyre clearance and the wheels. The tyre clearance on this bike has a maximum of 32 millimeters, which is basically industry standard now. You've sort of got to have that for wide tyres. Obviously, road surface out here in Spain isn't much of a problem, but when I go back home, I'm going to want that clearance. I'm currently running 30mm tyres, and that's kind of what I run on all bikes now, all my road bikes. And then the other thing I'll mention is the wheels. Now these wheels are the Elves Vanyar TH50D, and these come at a bargain price when you buy the frame. So you can have a bundle where you get the frame, the wheels, and this quite sexy cockpit. And again, all the pricing we'll put at the end, but they are such good value wheels. 50mm deep carbon ceramic bearings, which is just incredible. So when you're on the flat, they roll really nice. Pretty aerodynamic, pretty fast. What more do you want? So I'm about to say a little bit about the descending on this bike, and what better way to test the descending by descending off the Col de Rats. So I'm going to head up there now and then talk a little bit about that.
So I'm back at the top of the Col de Rats, and now I'm going to send it down the way I've just come up, back down into Parthent. So it's a good time to test the descending of this bike. And I guess in terms of descending, I'm really testing the wheels and their handling. Obviously the geometry of the frame has a big part to play as well. But in this day and age, no frames are getting made with such bad geometry that they don't handle well, especially if your fit's right. Which of course mine is. It better be, shouldn't it? So I'm going to descend, and then when I get to the bottom, I'll tell you what I think. Okay, so just having an emergency Repsol stop because it's just got very hot and I've run out of water. So in this salubrious location, I'll tell you about the Elves Vanyar descending. So 3 things really. I think firstly, at the top of the Col de Rats, I did say that geometry of bikes now is at a level where like all bikes handle okay, but there are obviously differences in geometry that make a difference to the feeling of the bike and the stability of the bike when you are descending. One of those big things is wheelbase, and it should be said that I spend a lot of time normally at home riding gravel bikes on the road for commuting and when it's bad weather and stuff like that. So I am used to a very long wheelbase, and this is a lot shorter, and I did feel that descending, and I have felt it this trip. So I think that's just me. I think that's just I'm used to something else and this is very different, so there's that initial feeling, and I can already feel myself getting used to that already. So yeah, it feels very responsive, very sharp, and for some people that would be great. For me right now, it just feels very different compared to what I'm used to. Second thing, the wheels. So these wheels are 50mm deep, and when you're descending a descent like Col de Rats, where it's very twisty, very turny, you're getting the wind from different directions throughout different parts of the climb. It's constantly changing all the time, and I would say that these wheels are less stable than other wheels that I've ridden before. I definitely felt and it's not particularly windy today, it really isn't, but I did feel the times where the wind was changing direction, and it didn't feel that stable when I was certainly doing some of those hairpins where the wind is changing from left to right. So yeah, I didn't quite expect that, because although they're 50mm deep, I would say that's probably at the top end of average, but still average. Still a lot of people ride that rim depth. They're not particularly or excessively deep. But yeah, they are a little bit less stable than what I'm used to. And thirdly, there is a little bit of chatter from the bearings in the hubs, which I can hear. It has no effect on the handling of the bike at all, but I can hear it constantly when I'm descending. It just vibrates a little bit. We noticed it when we took the wheels out of the box. It's quite common with ceramic bearings, but personally I'd like my bearings to be quiet, so yeah, might have a look at getting those changed. And again, these wheels are great value for money. Like, they're unbelievable value for money. Can you get a better set of wheels for this price? No, you definitely can't. So as a starter wheel, to get carbon rims, ceramic bearings, 50mm deep, nice wide rim width, you can't really beat it for the price. So are they the top spec of all wheels that's ever been made? No, they're not, but as a starting point, they're incredible value for money. So there's my first impressions of the Elves Vanyar Disc Pro. There's no doubt that it is a stunning looking bike, even littered with carb wrappers and glasses and sweat and bottles and all the rest of it. It still looks stunning. I'm going to magically head back to the UK now, and we'll talk through the spec, the full spec, and the price at what these bikes cost, which is going to blow your mind.
And just like that, I am back from sunny Calpe, and I just want to give you a bit of a summary of my thoughts of the bike, and then I'll go into the spec and the weight and the price and all those juicy details like that. So starting with my thoughts on the bike. So I obviously went out there, I know how much this bike costs, and I went out there thinking, I'm expecting it to be a good bike, because, you know, it's got decent components on it, and it's a nice carbon frame, and it's nice and lightweight. But I think because it's a lot cheaper than any other bike in this sort of spec, I was sort of expecting it to be a little bit crap here and there, or a little bit, I'd noticed some bits around it where you think, oh, that's why you get what you get when you pay the top money. But overall, I'm just so shocked by how much I love this bike. Like, it is so good. I've ridden lots of nice bikes and way more expensive bikes than this even. And honestly, this is the best bike I've ever ridden. And I really didn't think I'd be saying that about this bike because of the price. And if you told me that this bike cost £8,000–9,000 pounds, I'd be like, yeah, of course it does. Like, it feels like it should cost that much money, and it doesn't. And like I say, I'll tell you the price at the end. But yeah, I'm just really, really surprised. It responds well, it handles well. The wheels I mentioned could definitely be upgraded, but you can say that about nearly every bike that you buy. It climbs incredibly well. It's fast enough on the flat. You don't feel like you've got any sort of aero penalty, even though this is a lightweight climbing bike. It is just a proper all-rounder. And I think for the type of riding that I do here, and for the type of riding that I think a lot of cyclists do, where it's just general riding, a bit of a mix of flat and a bit of a mix of hills, some longer rides, some shorter rides. This is a bike that is comfortable for all day riding, and it's still nice and lightweight, that it feels really responsive on the climbs. So let's talk a little bit about the spec of this bike. So this is an Elves Vanyar Pro Disc. With Elves, everything is custom colored. So you can choose the design and the colors and even the color of your decals and stuff like that. So I've custom designed this bike, and there's nothing too crazy on here. This is the stock wheels that you can have as part of the Elves bundle, and the stock cockpit with the integrated stem and handlebars. And as a group set, we've got Ultegra Di2. I have customized the spec in the way that I've chosen my preferred crank length. I've chosen the gearing that's gone on this bike. So we've got 160mm cranks, and we've got a 50-34 chainring for climbing. The crank length, I've run that crank length for a while and really like it. And on the back, we've got an 11-34 cassette. Again, so good for climbing. This is what this bike's built for, and I do a lot of climbing back here, and I've obviously done a lot of climbing out in Calpe whilst I've been riding this bike already. So the gearing was sort of perfect for everything really. It's good all-rounder, but you've still got a nice easy gear for those steeper sections of the climbs. So the wheels are the Elves Vanyar TH50D. These are a wheel that you can buy as a bundle when you buy a frame set with Elves. And when you do buy them as a bundle, they are £598 extra on top of the frame set. So incredible value for money. I spoke a little bit about the wheels when I was out there in Calpe, and I did say, look, they're not the best wheels in the world. There are definitely better wheels out there. But for £598, are they the best wheels you can get for that kind of money? Probably yes. So not bad at all. And just to finish up with the other bits of finishing kit, saddle is a Selle Italia SLR Boost 3D. This is their new model. Been mega impressed with this saddle. I've ridden their SLR Boost, like the older version, for a couple of years now. Been really happy with that. This is better for me, so really happy with that saddle. That was the first time I've really ridden it as well in Calpe. Cockpit, as I mentioned, this comes as part of the bundle with the Elves frame set. So this is their own carbon one-piece cockpit with my preferred stem length at 120, and these were a 38cm bar. All in all, these felt really nice. The one complaint I did have was on the drops. They're a little bit thin here. I prefer like a chunkier drop. But other than that, really, really nice lightweight bar. And lastly, the tyres. These have always been my go-to tyre. These are a Continental GP 5000. These are just the do-it-all tyre of road bikes. They roll well, they're lightweight, they're very puncture resistant. They're just great all round. These are a 30mm tyre. The tyre clearance of this frame maximum is 32mm, so which is very good, but I like running 30s on pretty much everything. So that's the spec of the bike, and now let's get into the juicy numbers that you've been waiting for. Let's weigh the bike first and see what weight we've got this down to with, you know, very standard components. So they go 7.8 kilos, fully built up with pedals, bottle cages, Garmin mounts, everything on there. This is a size 56 frame, which they call an XL. So it's not a small frame by any stretch. And to get it down to 7.8 kilos without any tinkering or upgrading or spending any crazy money on some lightweight components, that is a really respectable weight for this bike, especially given how much it costs. And speaking of which, let's tell you how much this bike actually does cost. So the full price of this bike, without my swanky saddle, with just a stock saddle that comes with the bike, is £4,100, which is absolutely ridiculous for the spec that you get on this bike. If you compare that to any other brand of bike at that sort of price range, you're not getting the same spec. Or if you compare that to any other brand with the same spec, you're paying a lot more money than that. The other feature that I keep forgetting that is included in that cost is custom paint, which again is a feature that you do not get with nearly any other brand, definitely any other brand for this price point as well. And when I say custom paint, it is full custom. Custom colors, custom design, custom everything. So like I say, it still blows my mind how cheap this bike is compared to everything else out there on the market. And like I said at the start, if you told me that this bike costs £8,000, I'd be like, yeah, like it feels like an £8,000 bike. And to get all of this for half of that, plus the custom paint, is pretty mind-blowing. So all in all, as you can tell, I'm pretty stoked by this bike. I think I will be upgrading the wheels at some point, so stay tuned to find out what I do get for this bike. But other than that, absolutely incredible for the money. If you're interested in getting your own custom built, custom colored bike, completely spec to you with your choice of group set and gearing and components, we can do that for you via our sister company at Crafted Cycles. So if you're interested, head over to craftedcycles.co.uk, or you can find them on Instagram and YouTube as well.